Hi everyone, meteorologist Joel Curtis with your aviation weather, issued Thursday, December 19th. Getting close to solstice here, so we're going to start gaining time on Saturday. Okay, so start out with flying weather for Friday morning. Extensive IFR along the Gulf Coast all the way down to Shelikof Strait and the Alaska Peninsula, also the northern Panhandle. And then it stretches out into the eastern Aleutians and the eastern Bering Sea, and then a whole other area of IFR out in the western Bering Sea. Lots of marginal VFR up through the Alaska Range, out through southwest Alaska, and then of course in the southern part of the Panhandle, and a little bit of marginal VFR up there on the North Slope, particularly the eastern Beaufort Sea. So for Friday afternoon, IFR moving into the southern part of the Panhandles with some marginal VFR as you get a little bit further north. Marginal VFR persists along the North Gulf Coast. Also some IFR now as that easterly flow sets up precipitation and lowers those ceilings and visibilities, particularly for Kodiak Island, Shelikof Strait, and the eastern Kenai Peninsula. Also, the western part of the Alaska Range, we've got some marginal VFR conditions, and then extensive IFR of the central Bering Sea, including the Pribilofs, and then marginal VFR all the way up to the Bering Strait. And again, that marginal VFR persists in the Kaktovik area of the eastern Beaufort Sea. So now for Saturday morning, IFR continues along the Prince William Sound, eastern Kenai Peninsula, touching down through Shelikof Strait and on into the Alaska Peninsula, almost touching the eastern Aleutians. Lots of marginal VFR for the Panhandle, all along the Gulf Coast, up into the interior a little bit of the Copper River Basin, south central Alaska, southwestern Alaska, along the coast from Nunivak Island up to St. Lawrence Island, and then extensive IFR out into the Bering Sea, including the western Aleutians. And then for Saturday afternoon, guess what? Some more IFR all along the Gulf Coast, including the Panhandle, Prince William Sound, IFR for the western Alaska Range, down through the Alaska Peninsula into Bristol Bay, also for the Alaska Peninsula, on over to the eastern Aleutians, also extensive IFR out over the western Bering Sea, and then lots and lots of marginal VFR surrounding that, and a touch of marginal VFR up in the Kaktovik area. So let's go to our past conditions. First of all, Anaktuvik VFR, Adigan PF VFR for Friday, and then for Lake Clark and Merrill, got marginal VFR and expected turbulence too. For Rainy Pass, VFR becoming marginal VFR and turbulence. Windy Pass, marginal VFR and turbulence. Isabel Pass, marginal VFR becoming VFR. Mentasta Pass, marginal VFR becoming VFR and turbulence expected in the afternoon. Turbulence for Tahiti Pass, marginal VFR becoming VFR. And then for Portage Pass, marginal VFR and turbulence expected. Also mention IFR for the Prince William Sound area in the afternoon. And for Chilkoot and White Pass, IFR becoming marginal VFR and turbulence expected in the outflow winds from that high pressure over the Yukon Territory and Northwest Territories. So, for our freezing levels, a little bit of a temperature reversion in southwestern Alaska with the freezing level around 2,000 feet, but the surface line includes most of Alaska with the exception of the Alaska Peninsula now through the Aleutians. And then we have some warm air that you can see from 2,000 feet off the coast, and then ramps up to about 8,000 feet as you get to southern Haida Gwaii. So where does that put our icing? We're going for some moderate icing in the southern part of the Panhandle, also the northern part of the Panhandle, all along the Gulf Coast, and then for the western Alaska Range, Kodiak Island, and down into the Alaska Peninsula, almost on the edge, getting into Bristol Bay. And then we have isolated moderate icing That'll be about, in the east, that'll be about 6,000 to 16,000 feet. And then for the Bering Sea, it's got, again, some isolated moderate, large area, includes the Pribilofs, and that'll be from 4,000 to 14,000 feet. So now for our jet stream. Boy, what a mess. So we've got southeasterlies moving into the Kodiak Island area. The actual wind speed sort of ramps down, but you got 90 out over the Gulf. And then the jet picks up as westerlies across the Alcan border and into Canada. And then we have another streak coming down through the Bering Strait, about 60 knots or so. And then again, some easterlies going in across the northern and central Bering Sea. So that puts our 9,000-foot winds are actually a little bit stronger out over the Gulf. And you can see some of that 70-knot winds just south of Kodiak Island. They're easterlies with that circulation around those two lows. And then we've got southeasterlies come up in southwestern Alaska. And then we have also we have some northeasterlies coming down through the Bering Strait, about 45 knots or so. And then for our 3,000-foot winds, I modified the slide here just a little bit because I wanted to indicate down through Cook Inlet and along the western Alaska Range and some of the Wrangell-St. Elias Mountains for that matter, some northeasterly low-level winds. It's going to be a little bit windier than this particular model had, and I looked at a later model at the last second, and it had a little bit more wind. So that's why you're going to see the areas of turbulence actually rather larger than that. First of all, we've got a burst of 70s easterlies for the Dixon Entrance area. And then we've got some, we've got some easterlies for about 50 knots out over the Bering Sea. And then the northeasterlies, the same thing that we had at 9,000 feet coming down through the Bering Strait. So where does that put our turbulence down for Friday? Some of those winds are going to crank against the mountains. So we added in some considerable moderate for the western Alaska Range, also along the Alcan border, and then we have lots of considerable moderate for the Panhandle, all the way along the Gulf Coast, into Prince William Sound, down to Kodiak Island, Chillicothe Strait, and then we also have it for Bristol Bay as well, and that comes up almost to Nunivak Island. I also wanted to add an area of isolated moderate surface of 3,000 feet coming down through the Bering Strait and surfaces 3,000 feet over the Aleutians where it's almost a usual occurrence. So keep in mind that turbulence surface is 6,000 feet for most of the Gulf Coast area and much of southern Alaska. So that's it for our aviation forecast. Be sure to file a flight plan, let people know where you're going to be, and fly safe out there. Thank you.